All right, we're just going to go into this. Right. So, you know, the Health Consumers Council, there we go, that's our client, and I can be your point of contact because I do some work for them 2 days a week. So resources are very, very slight, very minimal, but we're doing the best we can with a team approach, working on the smell of an oily rag, as we say. All right, so background and context, the journey so far, and using social to drive strategic priorities is something that this presentation gives to you. But what you need to take from this then is that as consultants, you are group by group, a team of consultants needing to advise us as a client on the social media as you see it, the environment, who are some similar organizations or competitors, and then do some measures and metrics and how to enable a good strategy forward. So that's where it is, where we are now. Think about what we can find out about it, what other people are doing, and then where do we want to be? So background. This is given to you rather than you having to find out. These are the platforms that Health Consumers Council has: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and of course, a website. Interestingly, there are some platforms that are not used that people have suggested we do use, like TikTok. And there are reasons why not. For example, resources, time. But how could we possibly put this into action with the minimum time for creating TikToks, and knowing that we have to be absolutely regular, we have to be consistent to be noticed. We understand a lot about what needs to be done in best practice, but need to know how we can do it possibly if it's something that you would suggest. On this page, just outlining the tools that we have put in place and something for you to look into if you haven't come across them yet. Things like Linktree, so that we can shorten our links and make them accessible on Instagram. Bitly is a way that we use, or it's the platform we use to shorten the links. And we use it not necessarily because the links are always long, but it's because, and look into this if you don't know yet, Bitly is one of the many shortening platforms that allow us to be able to create links and then be able to see day by day the number of clicks that we get on these links. And we use these Bitly shortened links in all socials. I mean, we could, of course, create a different link and measure it specific to Facebook or specific to a blog or specific to fill in the blank. But really, time just doesn't allow for that sort of thing. Hootsuite, we at least do have a pro version, so we can schedule on all platforms. It has improved the ability to share that around the team. So there is, as I said, myself doing a couple days, not only doing social media though, and this allows for other people to look at the same calendar and perhaps see what is already scheduled, as well as create posts if they had the time. Now, I'm thinking maybe you would suggest that there be like a template of sorts to help the team do this more quickly, or look, whatever kind of ideas you might have for us to not only see what we are doing already and suggesting what we could do better, but how we could do it better. Okay, Meta Business, if you've ever had a community or a sports group or any kind of Facebook group or page, Meta Business is just the free to air kind of Instagram, Facebook posting, scheduling, but it's my nightmare. I'll just tell you. So if it's not your nightmare, I would love to see in your report why you don't think it's a nightmare and why you think it is useful. Of course, native posting, and by native, I mean going into each platform one by one and trying to, well, not trying, one by one, posting something unique to each platform. So of course, that happens anyway after we do scheduling, because we go back in just to make sure that links are working, or that sometimes we need to do a tag better or correct details. And everything except for Twitter, we can go back in and edit. So that's at least a thankful element to all of the platforms. Twitter, everyone knows that there are mistakes made. So again, if you need to comment in your report as to how it should be done better, please do. Brand-wise, we try to keep to these colors. We use Canva. It's a free Canva, but at least we've been able to create the RGB colors of the CYMK. And if those letters don't make any sense to you, just a little brief aside, colors are either for screen RGB or for print CMYK. It's a matter of numbers and exactly what shade, hue, tone of color is associated with a brand. Okay, so that you get things printed properly and it comes out as a true color. Well, we've at least been able to set that up in Canva so that we can do something branded. We don't really have, we don't have sophisticated templates, but something basic, at least trying to keep, because it's not just one person who's an expert, but it's a team of at least 2, if not 4 other people jumping in and out of socials and Canva and creating things at times. So if anything, I'm thinking, you know, this is what we're doing. And mostly it's one person or a couple people that know how to use it properly, but the other people might need a bit of a template guide in that way. So, and of course, you know, what is the most effective but most time efficient way of creating different images, because we understand every platform has an absolute perfect dimension for the image to fit, but it's also knowing what's the best across the board for all the platforms that we do have. I understand that web design is a completely different thing, so not expecting you to give dimensions for what's better there. But if one on your team of consultants has expertise in coding and some sort of image display, sure, throw it in your report. That'd be fine too, but not expected, because that's a whole different realm of consulting when it comes to website design. Now, current practice versus what we could be doing. These are just some things that I've identified that perhaps when you and your team goes through the content that is easily accessible on the website and through socials, I've just thought, you know, we don't really have a very distinct content. I call them content pillars. And basically, if you think of pillars exactly as they are, pillars, or if you think of silos, you know, where barley goes into one thing, wheat goes into another thing, canola goes into another thing. I'm using metaphors for harvest because I have a great attachment to the agricultural community in WA, but still. Or if you think of, okay, orange juice in this container, apple juice in that container, milk in a different container. They are 3 different things. So it's like content pillars or content containers that contain similar content. What would we name these, you know, 3 to 5 or how many different pillars of content that we are basically guided by, that kind of you can collect several different posts into a certain category of content. Observation that hasn't been analyzed, but certainly there are at least 5, if not 10 or more posts across platforms. This now branches into a possible lead on what content pillars might be. COVID communications, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander engagement, but Aboriginal for WA. By HCC, that's Health Consumers Council, our own events, information sessions that we hold, as well as those that we hold with a partnership type of opportunity. We also do comment on issues that are in the news right now. And sometimes that has been shared on socials or in blogs. There's also news and media results from when we've actually been quoted in radio or print or online news. We also do promote third-party events and information sessions, especially when it does come to consumer, as you would expect from our organization's name, being that we are absolutely for empowering health consumers, people who are very much using the health system. Now, that could be everybody in WA at some point in past, present, or future will be a consumer, someone using something in the public health system of Western Australia. But generally, a health consumer is considered someone who's fairly active. I mean, using the health system on an ongoing way, otherwise, for reasons that are lifetime illnesses or conditions, or at least long periods of time when they're active and utilizing the services of health service professionals. Now, we have not produced much long form type case study pieces. So I'm just thinking that's an opportunity. Maybe you don't think so, maybe we don't need to. That would be something that we would compare ourselves to another organization perhaps. And we definitely have an opportunity because the time in the past has not allowed itself to monitor socials for content creation that's more proactive in response to other people making comment. And then we can seek further content from our team members, because we've got a team that includes advocacy and information officers. So individual advocacy and information provided to the public about the health services and social care services in Western Australia. This is just a little bit of theory thrown in there, understanding that, yes, we do need to have a balanced approach to external communications in the marketing communication context. So there is a media relations side of communication. There's internal and external. When we say internal stakeholder engagement, that could include some organizations and influencers or policymakers, high up executives or departmental officials and directors in the health system, as well as external being the consumers that I already described. Marketing collateral being the digital, the web, as well as the printed flyers, brochures, newsletters, whatnot. It could be even posters, anything that's branded. And then everything in that middle bit has to be, and we understand that it has to be an integrated communication effort so that those core messages and our organizational values and our purpose come through clearly, not to be muddled. This has gone a bit askew with formatting, but that's all right. The goals and the purpose of the digital and social media efforts of our organization are fairly obvious and fairly basic. We are in a less mature stage compared to commercial enterprises around WA or the nation or the world. So we really are building awareness, because if we were in a room together right now, I would say raise hands how many people had heard of Health Consumers Council of WA before being mentioned in lecture or somewhere along the lines of the last 7 weeks or 8 weeks since we first met. So building awareness so that people out there really know that this is an organization that's out there for people like us when we need to have information or need somebody to support us in a complaint or giving a compliment to something that's happened in the health system of WA. We need to increase engagement, making people more our fans, our supporters, word of mouth, sharing, liking, commenting, all of these things. So think real world, how you share information with people that you know, and then think, how do we do that best in social media? With an aim to focus on Western Australia. We are an organization that is Western Australian only. So there might be issues that affect Australians or the world itself, but still, our communications are very focused on WA. Message to align with vision, purpose, values, that core competency, that consistency I was talking about with the last slide, is making sure that we keep our language and our tone, even if it's conversational and a little bit, building a force to be reckoned with. We want to support the people. It's pretty proletariat, really, social democratic kind of approach we've got. But, we want equitable, person-centered, quality healthcare for all West Australians. And to increase the capacity of all people, which means to support people and build their knowledge and their want to gain more knowledge, being to increase the capacity of all people to influence the future direction of healthcare and to make informed choices. People need information. Information is knowledge. Knowledge is power. And that, by power, I mean influence their own healthcare and to make good choices. And of course, values, respect, kindness, equity, a real working together, a partnership approach, being full of integrity and empowering people. Now, because it's such a small team, it's myself at 2 days, there are 2 other people who work 4 days a week. There is the executive director who has actually been away for 3 months on family matters. So the deputy director has taken on her own role, plus the acting executive director. And we have an admin officer that can help with a little bit of exactly that, administration. The advocacy and information team are experts in social work and welfare, a little bit of psychology, and their team is about 5 people strong, but they do not have the capacity to help with social media, but they do absolutely have the professional and expert ability to answer questions and provide things that could be, even in bullet point, the basis of a social media post or a news article or a blog that goes on the website. And that's what that final note at the bottom of this slide means, is basically saying that because someone has to collate all this information, send whatever story ideas or answers or opinions you've got that we can share in a news article, a blog, or a social media post to the marketing comms email with the subject line saying this is for e-news and or this is for socials, so that we're easily able to access that information. I will be answering questions in the chat after I go through these slides, which are fairly much gone through. The competitive environment. Now, this I mentioned to you that in week 2, the lecture slides, or week 3, I mentioned exactly what slide contained the social media audit template, as well as a how-to, actually 2 how-to videos for how to do a social media audit. The Blackboard assessment folder also contains an article that is a how-to step-by-step for what to do, what to prepare, what to look for, and how to put together a social media audit. And there's also a template suggested for you to include in your report. And I say suggested because it can be as simple as something like this, with more explanatory notes that you provide in a written report. That would be your proposal and report to us as consultants to the client. Or you can use the template. It's whatever way you believe presents the information in the clearest way possible. Current social media platforms, I've mentioned this before, what we do have, should we have others? If so, why? Fairly simple question. The answer may be simple or it may be more complex. We're asking you. If we need others, why? Resources, I've already gone through this a bit as to how strapped we are for time. I am at 2 days per week, and in those 2 days, I do the social media scheduling, native posting, produce an e-newsletter monthly, e-blasts, when is what we call something that needs to be sent out immediately outside of the monthly newsletter for information specific. There is also a systemic health service staff newsletter and systemic health service influencing, advocacy, networking type role that I play. Write the blogs, website updates and maintenance, which is huge. There's so much that needs to be done continually, and many of the pages in this website have not been touched for at least a couple of years, which is phenomenal. when there's so much happening all the time, but also not that unrealistic to realize because how small the team is. So also in charge of photography, media relations, and more. So just getting across that it's a lot to do with 2 days a week. And it's very strict, as in like, this is a charity organization. It's a non-government charity, not-for-profit organization that has very little budget, as in almost zero. And we need fee for service, or we rely on a government grant or donations. So the journey so far, these are just a few stats that are given over the time period of a few years. This is something that at least we're not looking for huge engagement metrics from you or Google Analytics. If by any chance one of you as a team, if a team would like to have information in order to do analysis of metrics, I can provide numbers for you if you'd like. There might be someone there who really loves playing with numbers and understands analytics. Not something that is required for the assessment of this course, but in a social media audit, it would be something professionally that you would be required to do. That said, these numbers are provided so that you're able to look at the very simplest of measurements that is publicly available, and that's followers for each of the platforms. So something to take a look at and know that there are spikes and there have been lulls, and there is a reason why, because it's often been a position, communications and marketing has been a position that has got very little time for just social or just any one particular thing, but also has had a number of hiccups when it comes to people going on parental leave or being ill, whatever. There are no excuses for anything in life. Just have to keep on going forward. So this is what we think we do well. And that's why, tagging organizations, thought leadership, providing comment, definitely promoting our own events and promoting third-party events and healthcare comment. And there are opportunities I mentioned, but for you, the big question is this what we're doing well, or do you have a different opinion? And how do we do things differently and better? So driving strategic priorities, almost exactly the same. The rule of thirds, knowing that we need to share other people's information and events. We need to engage, we need to comment, ask questions to others, and then also promoting our own. So are we actually following this rule of thirds in order to create the best value? That's something that you can also assess without any analytical background data by looking at content. So goal, purpose, needing to amplify, share information, increase followers, our reach, increase engagement. And we just need to think, what is it that we can possibly do to do it best? And this is where we're at. So we're reviewing, because we're asking you to review where we're at now in order to get the best in the future. So it's a chicken and egg, because we know that in order to reach the most amount of people, we need to engage more people. But in order to engage people, we need to have maximum reach. This is a matter of how do we do this all the best? And we're asking you to advise us on how to measure and how to go forward. And as consultants, we're asking you to advise how to take a more strategic focus forward, considering the restraints or constraints with time and resources. So analysis can be meaningful in adjusting our approach, and you can analyze things that are free to public, such as the followers and such as the content that's available. And the content itself is the only way to connect with our audience, whether that's images, words, tone. Are we using the right tone, the right language on each of those different platforms? How can we do it better? And what are we getting the most traction on? That just by observing, just by scanning, rather than looking at numbers, what are the top performing type of posts on each one of those of our owned platforms? And we know we need to tailor the content to the audience. So this social media audit is absolutely at the core. What are our competitors or similar organizations doing that we should be doing? Or what can we do that is fresh, different, and or new to this space of social media to amplify our message and to really engage consumers and